How to buy a property from two owners who are trying to kill each other. That's the topic of today's show. This is Todd Toback, and I want to welcome you to the No Limits Real Estate Investing Podcast. If you are looking to do big, fat, giant wholesale deals, then this is your place. If you have not been to our website, I've got a gift for you. Head on over to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script. And there you can get a copy of the very same script that my team has used to lock up over 1,300 deals. If you've ever wondered what to say to a seller, word for word, and the tonalities and how to handle some objections, go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script to get your free copy today. Before we jump into today's listener's question, I got some great news sent in by a listener. So let's go ahead and play that, and then I'll get to today's question.
Hey, this is Roger. Well, let's start with the good news. Just closed a deal, bought it for 100 and sold it for 143.
So awesome, Roger. Thanks for sending that in. Short and sweet. 43K spread. I love that. I'll tell you what, first of all, congratulations. That's huge. I noticed that some people, sometimes they have that 10K barrier, then the 25K barrier, and then they've got that 50K barrier that they're always trying to break. So Roger, first of all, fantastic news. That's huge. Man, I just can't wait for that next one for you to hit that 50 or 100. So keep sending them in. All right, so let's jump in to today's question.
Hey Todd, this is Jay from Pennsylvania. Hey man, I just bought the No Limit sales system. I absolutely love it, and trying to absorb it all and get my first deal done. And a question that I have been struggling with and would love to get your ideas or opinion on. I've had several instances of sellers who are going through a divorce or separation, and husband reaches out for an offer and go out to the property and meet with him. Only to find out that there's imminent trouble with the marriage, and eventually we get to the point of an offer, and the wife comes along, and out of spite or whatever, she blows up the deal. And so I've been getting better at uncovering this fact in advance, but now my struggle is the last property actually insisted that both the husband and wife come to the property and meet me there. Well, the wife got so upset that she ended up in the bathroom crying and refused to talk to anybody, and needless to say, I've been ghosted ever since from that deal. So wonder what your thoughts are, if you have any ideas how you work to bring both parties to the table, and so that it doesn't feel like, you know, you're singling out one person or the other, or showing favoritism or anything like that. So love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
Oh, great question. Thanks for sending it in. I can tell you, I've felt this pain before when I used to meet with motivated sellers, and you're dealing with, especially a divorce situation. There's a lot of pain there and arguments, and you're not dealing usually with two rational people, right? It's more important sometimes for one person to stick it to the other than actually to get a deal done. So first of all, sympathies to the people who are involved, and this is a hardship. The good news is that in a situation like this, you can come in and solve the problem and at least take this pain away. So my first piece of advice is, number one, empathize, right? This is a tough situation, and understand that it's tough, right? And so I would listen carefully to the people talking. On the other hand, also know that this has the opportunity either to be a huge time suck, right? And you could make a little bit of profit or none, or it has the opportunity to be a big, fat, giant wholesale deal. So you need to determine that very, very quickly. If you determine that if you can solve this big, giant, messy, hairy, complicated problem, and you could make $50,000 or $100,000, then I would suggest trying to solve this problem. If you are all of a sudden going to get in this big, fat, hot mess, right, dealing with these two people, and you're going to make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, I would walk from this deal. Okay, very, very important is that you need to draw a line in the sand on the minimum profit that you're willing to make for dealing with this big, giant, hairy mess. For me, I'm probably going to put that mark, probably somewhere around $35,000. That's just me, right? Maybe 50. And depending on how messy it was, if it was really messy, I might put $100,000 on that. So you need to determine what your time is worth. If it's small, get the heck out of there. Run, don't walk. Okay, that is the most important part of this podcast episode. If you get nothing else, if there's a tiny little profit attached to this, just walk. There are easier fish to fry. And I hope you heard me there. Now, if we've got a big, fat, juicy wholesale deal at the end of this, all right, let's go. Let's cowboy up and let's get this done. Number one, understand the situation is hot, right? It is hot, 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 hot. And these people don't see eye to eye. So what one person says to you in the conversation is not what the other person is probably thinking, right? So if one person says, well, this person will do whatever I say. The other person's going to say, no, that's not what's going to happen, right? X, Y, Z is going to happen. So know that you're dealing with this. But you do have to make sure that you have at least the consent of one party to purchase this house at a price in which you're going to make a big, fat, giant profit. So you want to start there. So Mr. Seller, let's just assuming that we could get your spouse or ex on board. You and I, before we get your spouse in this, you and I have to come to the table on price. Is that fair, Mr. Seller? Yes. Okay, great. So first negotiate that price. And if you can get there with that person, then take the next step. But if you can't, there's no reason to proceed at this point, right? I'd put a stop on it and say, okay, well, why don't we chat in 6 months and then follow up at that point? All right, so make sure you lock in that initial process. We are locking this compartment so we're not moving backwards. If we can't lock this compartment, then we're not going to move on to the spouse. Now that you've got a verbal agreement with this person, now what you do is you bring in the other partner. Now, if this is so hot and there's yelling and there's screaming and there's a ton going on, you do not want to do this in person. You don't want both people there. I would meet with each person separately and have that conversation so that you diffuse as much emotion as possible. So if you find out it's hot, then meet with the second and see if you can't come to an agreement with that second party. Now, if it's amicable and there isn't fighting, and maybe it's a divorce situation, you can attempt to get them into the same room, but only if it's amicable. If it's not, don't get them in the same room. All right. Now, if you're close with the first party, or you have the verbal of the first, and the second you're just off, I would then start objection handling. I get this, but let me ask you this. What would it take to get this deal done? And if they cooperate with you, listen and see if you can't handle that objection. Maybe it's price. Maybe it's something else, right? But find out what that is. If not, then this person's going to require some more time, right? And then you can come back to that. I'd follow up in a month. I'd call the first party and then call the second party. And then I'd go back and I'd say, Mr. Seller, listen, I know that we're here on price. Your spouse isn't. Why don't you guys try to work on each other and let's just talk in a month? If they can't come to an agreement, here's what I would do. Here's a little ninja trick that I would use that I've never heard anyone else talk about, but I've used this. And I'm only going to do this if there's a big, fat, giant wholesale deal at the end. Is I'm going to get these parties into mediation. Now, what is mediation? You're thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds expensive. Well, yes and no, right? This is going to be an investment, but you may or may not know that your local board of realtors, the National Association of Realtors, almost all of them have a local office, and they will actually offer mediation services, right? They normally have like an ex-lawyer there or an ex-judge who works them to try to mediate parties so that lawsuits can be avoided. So I recently had a couple of parties and they were fighting over a deal, and I got them into mediation. I actually got them to pay for it. I think it was $200 an hour, and each person paid $125, and we were there for 2 hours, and a mediator beats them both up, right? And I was there too. And basically they beat them both up and they agreed on a settlement. They took my offer, right? One person took a little bit less than the other, and the deal was Done. So if you can get them both into mediation with a third party, right? The third party will beat them both up and make them feel less confident in their position, right? That's their job, right? Then you have a better chance of getting that done. You've got a professional who's going to be better than you than mediating between the two parties. Now, for me, I could teach you in sales and negotiation, right? But mediating between two parties, you might want to bring in a big gun. So check that out. Your local National Association of Realtors, or it would be your local association of realtors. For me, it would be the San Diego Association of Realtors. But get them mediation with a mediator, and that will diffuse a lot of the tension in the situation. Again, only do that if it's a big deal. All right. You want to build rapport with both. You want it to appear that you're taking sides, empathize, and then get the contract signed. So let me summarize. Number one, listen carefully. Number two is do not get involved in this deal unless there's a big fat giant wholesale profit at the end. Okay, you're going to know that by talking to at least one of the parties, and if they're not going to agree, okay, then don't move forward. If there is a giant wholesale fee at the end, right, understand the situation is hot and what the one person says is unlikely to be accepted by the other person, no matter what that first person says. You may be surprised, but just understand there's probably more to the story. Okay, ask them if the two get along. If they don't, meet with them separately. Once you have an agreement with one person, meet with the other. If one person is feeling dominated, and I didn't mention this in the first part, and bullied in the situation, you want to take the person who's not dominated, right, or is feeling like they're being dominated and bullied, out to lunch, and you want to be super passive, super good listener, and try to come to terms with that person on a one-on-one lunch. This is if you're in town and you're not locking up deals over the phone. If not, you can do that over a Zoom or a Google Meet, or over the phone if you have to. Some of these deals, okay, will need to be waited out. That's why they need to be really, really big, right? If you can't come to terms, hire a mediator, right? Have the parties pay for it, $125 each an hour, right? That would be $250 an hour. Check out your local association of realtors and let that person beat them up. You want to be there, right? And be a friend to both sides and see if you can't come to an agreement. That's if you can't negotiate it yourself, right? Once you have that, get the contract signed, open escrow, try to close it as fast as humanly possible because deals like this can blow up and move on to the next deal. And hopefully you collected a big, fat, giant wholesale deal. If you want to know more about the No Limit Sales System and actually how to close sellers, go to nolimitsalessystem.com. Or if you want the script that I mentioned above, go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script. And I will talk to you on the next episode.